Hey guys, Jeremy here at My Way MFG. Last video I showed the sprockets and chain that my friend Troy had brought over to me. Troy's also the one we got to own an engine from, and he's donated all this stuff to me, and I'm very appreciative of that. Troy, he said he likes watching the videos and he thought that was payment enough, and I gotta get this running for him now, right? Anyway, thank you, Troy. My Uncle John, he's a retired farmer, and he follows along with the videos as well. I see him a couple times a week. In the last video, he heard me talking about needing a piece of pipe and a flange, and well, he'd brought me the other stuff that was too small. But he took me in the truck the other day and we went looking through farm scrap piles. And we started coming up with pieces for grain elevators. This is a piece off a grain elevator. It's 8-inch pipe. This is 1/8 inch stuff. And it's got a flange welded to it. And I thought, you know, get that bolted on there like that maybe. Start making up something. Only thing was, this is welded all the way around, and I thought that's probably not very true, because they were just welding this on there so they could bolt it to another piece of pipe. It wasn't going to be spinning or anything, and I thought, I doubt if that's good, but it gives me something to think about, you know. As it turns out, a 7-inch pipe would have worked very well for this, but you find 6 and you find 8, and from what I understand, they make 7, but nobody ever uses it much. So the chances of walking up to a piece of 7-inch pipe is pretty hard to do. So anyway, I got a new flange that hasn't been welded yet, same as the one I just showed you. And I've got a piece of pipe that's 8-inch, except this is 3/16, whereas the other one that was welded to that flange was 1/8. So this is a little heavier. So I can now make up a new one and get it trued up so it's spinning straight. My next thought was, does the 8-inch pipe, it's pretty big, does it actually fit inside the wheel and clear everything? So let me show you. This is the wheel off the other side that doesn't have the brake drum in it. If I drop that down in there and center it up, it does. There's really nothing in the way there anywhere. But I got to make a plate for the front of that so that has something to bolt to. So then I thought, that plate's going to be sitting here and here on these two high spots. How does that play out? Well, I took a straight edge and I laid it across there like that. The outer parts are a little bit higher, and I can slide a 14mm feeler gauge in here and here. So that's pretty flat. I don't think that 14mm is going to hurt us any. So anyway, I think we're on to something here. So for all you guys doing this at home, I know there's thousands of you. As it turns out, if you're trying to run a chain drive down to the wheel on your Model T replica pickup truck, I can't be 100% certain yet, but it looks to me like all you need is a few pieces off of a grain elevator. That's what I'm thinking at the present moment. By the way, that flange and that piece of 3/16 pipe and this piece of plate, which is also 3/16, that was also donated to us from a friend of my uncle's. So thank you for that. I have laid that piece of pipe over this and traced an inside circle on the inside of it. Found a center point. I made a divot with a punch and drilled a hole and then I straight lined an X from corner to corner. That's how I found the center point. And I went to town and I bought one of these things, and that cost me $3.80. But I can run around now and draw circles of any size anywhere I want. I've never been able to do that before, so that's a very good thing. That 5.5-inch bolt pattern, I set this at 2 3/4, and I just drew a circle. You can't really see it, it's a fine pencil mark. And it also turns out it's also 2 3/4 in between each wheel stud. So I've double checked everything, and I've got these all pre-drilled with 1/8-inch holes. So I think my next step is to run a hole saw down through here and try to get a hole in the center that will clear our axle. We need to be able to clear this section right here so it sets flat. So I don't know if I've got a good enough hole saw to cut that or not. That looks like it might be 3.5 inches. I need to measure it. That was 3 3/4 inches, so a 4-inch hole saw would work pretty good for that. We don't care if that's a little big. We just need it to be big enough. And I still don't have any gas in my torch, so I thought I was going to have to be making a flange, and if I hadn't made a flange, it wouldn't have had this on it. It would have been nothing more than a ring. And I was going to have to cut an inside circle. And I thought, I'm definitely going to need my torch for that, because it's going to be hard to cut an inside circle. But now that I got this, I think the only thing I really need to cut is the flange for the wheel. So I'm just going to try to do it with hole saws and a grinder, because that torch gas is expensive. So anyway, let me see if I can find a hole saw. Having that flange like that is going to make this a whole lot easier to get trued up. It gives me a lot better starting point to work with than just trying to get a ring tacked on there. I was going back watching that last segment of video I filmed. I kept saying 14 millimeter on the difference in that wheel when I was straight edging it. I suppose all of you watching knew I meant 14 thousandths. A millimeter's a dime, 14 dimes. That's. But whenever I make a mistake like that, I know a lot of the YouTubers will say something like that, and then when they edit the video, they'll put writing across the screen that says, you know, this is a correction, what I meant to say. I don't know how to do that. I've tried to figure it out. I don't know how to put the writing across the screen. So anytime you see me make a mistake like that when I'm talking, there's a good chance I know about it. I just don't know how to correct it. When talking about that floor jack, you know, when I would say here's a floor jack part or there's a floor jack part, I kept calling it a shop vac. I done it several times. I've seen it in my editing, but other than just making another video correction like I'm doing now, you guys know what I mean. I'm dumb, you know. That's why you watch me, right? But anyway, I needed 3 3/4 of an inch to clear that axle hole saw. I thought a 4-inch hole saw. I could only find a 3 5/8, but as I said in a previous video, these kind of sometimes walk around. And by the time I get the hole cut, it might be pretty close. If not, it's not too much to take off with a die grinder. But that looks like a good sharp one, so I'm gonna use it. It'll get us close. Drill bit keeps slipping. Now we don't care if it slips or not. All right, I got that hole cut with the 3 5/8 hole saw, and hole saws always do that when you're doing metal. That's why I think I just said in the last video or the one before, probably best to start with the smallest one if you're trying to get it perfect, because by the time it walks its way through there, you're going to have a bigger hole. In this case, we needed a bigger hole, so that's probably going to be just about right. If nothing else, just clean it up with a die grinder just a bit, because I was needing 3 3/4, right? There'll be maybe a little bit of grinding to do, but luckily this hole has nothing to do with getting our sprocket trued up, so that should be fine. I've got the holes drilled and I got this partially cut out. Just made straight cuts, and then I started straight lining the corners, and it made like a 8-sided octagon out of it. And it just left me where I had to grind off these little triangles. So I've ground off all the ones I could get to here without making my final cut. I'll get that cut off and then put it in a vise and get the other 3 or 4. And then see if that'll fit the axle flange. Gosh, I hope so. I need a little bit more clearance here. And I put a line around there with a marker, and I think by the time I grind that line off, probably be about right. So let's get that done. And then we're gonna have to cut that. I got that about halfway ground out. I've got to go from here to here with it. I got tired of running the die grinder. I probably ground on that for 15-20 minutes. The air compressor kept up. It seemed to have got down to like 90 pounds and just kind of maintained there. But it kicked back up to 130 or 140 and shut off. I'll get back to that here in a second. I need to get this cut off too. I'm still on the same cutoff wheel with making that. That's good. I put a square across here and I was checking it. It's not perfect, but I think this is a factory cut on this side. It's off a little. I'm just going to have to true it up when I weld the plate on. And without having a lot of machine tools here to work with, I just started scribing a line down through that. I'm going to cut it at 4 inches, and then I'll just have to get it straight when I weld it, you know. I don't know how many cutoff wheels it'll take me to cut this. I still think it's cheaper than torch gas, so because cutoff wheels are about $3 a piece. Looks like I'm making a brake drum. Got a small tack weld here and here. I'm gonna put it on there once, set up a guide wire and spin it, and just see where we're at. All right, I got 2 tacks on there. I got my guide wire set up. We're just not quite there yet. I gotta break it back off, but there's probably 1/16 of an inch maybe. It's not terrible, but I'd like to try to get it perfect if I could. Okay, we start getting low here, and then it comes out of it here. So this top third right here, I'm gonna try to cut off this tack weld, tilt that up just a little bit and try to split the difference, and then we'll try it again. Yeah, I just finished getting that welded up all the way around. I got it within 1/8 of an inch. I kept trying to get it perfect, but no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't seem to get that last 1/8 of an inch. But I got it flat. The sides are square with the plate. I've just got like 1/8 of an inch of up and down movement in it. I'd try to break it apart and get it better, and I'd make it worse. And finally, that last time when I got the 1/8 of an inch, I just thought, the hell with it, I'm going to go with it. So get that ground off, and I think we're ready for step 2. Thought the next step would maybe be get that sprocket lined up on that flange and get some new holes drilled in it. That flange has got an 8-bolt pattern. The sprocket's got a 6. But that turned out to be real easy to do. Let me show you what I did. Off one of the sprocket holes here and here, I just straight edged it and drew a line. And then I lined up 2 of the holes onto that line here and here. And that gave me my right distance going one direction. And then I just came out, I got 2 1/4 inches from the flange to the end of the tooth. And I just made sure it was like that everywhere at 2 1/4, and checked it all the way around. And I just marked my holes with a marker. So I think that ought to be just perfect. We just got to drill them 8 new holes and get that bolted on there. I ground all that down just a little bit, but I didn't get too carried away with it. But that's welded pretty good, burned in good and deep. I don't know whether to put some stitches on the inside there, maybe like 4 of them or something, you know, parallel and perpendicular to one another, but I don't think that would ever break off there. That's all made of 3/16. And there's a bit of a gap in between the flange and the pipe. I'm thinking when I get ready to do that, I might take wood shims and cut them into slivers and just shim it all the way around, and then put my guide wire on and just adjust my shims until I get it all centered up good, and then start putting tack welds on it maybe. But I get this holes drilled and get this flange mounted on, and then my next step is probably needs to be cut this off there and get the other sprocket welded on it, so I can find my center line for my chain. I need to know that before I position that flange for the final time. Anyway, this is going real good. I'm about 1/8 of an inch off up and down with that piece, but I kind of give up. I mean, that's hard to do, but it's not bad. It's actually better than pulley was. It had a pretty good wobble in it. So I just feel like with the chain, I need to be pretty good, you know, pretty good. But I think I am pretty good. We just don't want it throwing chains off, right? are getting loose and tight as it goes around. Yeah, hopefully we're good enough. And maybe that eighth of an inch that I had off, maybe I can still get it out when I put the flange on. I don't know. But we'll see what happens. I'm gonna go and get a cup of coffee and I think take a shower. I went in and got all cleaned up, and I couldn't quit thinking about it. So I came back out in the garage. I just had to know if I could get that eighth of an inch straightened out by shimming the flange. So let me show you where I'm at. I got that drum tightened up on there. I've been shoving shims in there and adjusting. I got my guide wire set up right there. Watch how close I am. I got a little bit of rubbing going on right there, but that is really good. So I'm thinking I can probably do a little more adjusting and get that perfect. So I'm gonna go back in the house for real this time, and I'll sleep a little better tonight knowing that. Just got that pulley cut off of my my yoke here. Getting ready to put this sprocket on. Of course, my cut wasn't quite square. I wrapped a piece of tape around there, and I started checking it with this to the top. I got that tape running with the top of the square there. So if I grind off that little bit above the tape, it ought to put me, you know, fairly close enough to work with anyway, and then I can get it welded on there straight. Talking about welding that on there straight, reason I came back out here last night after going in the house, I knew I had about an eighth of an inch of up and down movement in that. Before I welded that, I had checked a plate on the top of that with the square, and I was pretty sure I had my flange square with the cylinder, because if I had the whole thing off up and down, that would rotate and it would just move like this, and I could probably fix it with the next flange that the sprocket bolts to. But if I had that welded to where it wasn't square on the flange, then it's moving like this, and no matter what I do, it's never going to be right. It'd be like having a bent axle, you know. So I was pretty sure I was on the right track with that, but after putting the shims in there and checking it with the guide wire, we're good. I'm going to be able, I think, to get that perfect, which is the difficulty level on this on a scale from 1 to 10 is probably getting pretty close to a 10. When you're trying to do this with nothing more than a welder and a grinder and a couple squares and tape measures, this is pretty precision stuff, and it's heavy stuff, so it's got to be strong too, you know. So we're going to get it done with nothing more than what we got here. It's going to be just fine. But anyway, my heater just ran out of gas. It's kind of cold today. I think I probably ought to go get more. I'm going to grind this off real quick before I do, and just see if I can get this setting a little flatter. Not perfect, but close enough to work with, I think. All right, got this sprocket all welded on. That all went pretty good. I got the guide wire on it. I'm not going to say I'm perfect, but I'm very, very close to it. It's not off much. I took a die grinder, ground the inside of this off so I could get a weld there along the inside on that seam where them two come together. I burned that in hot. And then I got the back side welded all the way around. So hopefully that stays on there. It's pretty straight. I like that. And then over here, I've started drilling these holes and bolting this sprocket to this flange. I'm using 3/8 bolts. I had a center line here and here. So I got these 2 bolts in perfectly on the center line. And then I started measuring all the way around. I got 2 1/4 inches to the end of the tooth from the flange. So I just made sure I had that 2 1/4 all the way around. And now that I've got these 2 bolts in, I'm going to finish drilling the rest of the holes. And then we'll stick that back on there. Getting ready to put this on and try to get it all trued up with these wood shims. The hole in this sprocket, I just put 4 of the 8 bolts in there for now. I think we're perfectly centered. That should hold it, and then we'll put the rest of them in later. But this doesn't slide over that. This hole's too small. So I got to put that on first and then put this back on. I put a paint mark right here so I could position this back the same way. It shouldn't matter, but just in case it does, you know. In order to use those wood shims to center that up, I can't stick them in all the way now because they hit my sprocket. Maybe I can cut the ends of the wood shims off, or really all I need the sprocket on there for is to get my chain alignment, my position. Then I could probably take the sprocket back off, get the ring all positioned, you know, get it all centered up and running true. Weld it on and put the sprocket back on, then it wouldn't matter. Let me straight edge. I'm gonna run a straight edge on this one. I've just spent about the last 15 minutes getting that all trued up, and I think I'm pretty close to perfect with it. And what I would like to do is put some stitch welds on there to hold it, and then just take it all back off and finish welding it right in that position. Only trouble is that flange is painted, and I really need that clean because I need good welds there. So I guess I'm gonna have to take that back apart, clean that flange, and do this step over. I wish I'd have cleaned that flange before I went this far with it. But anyway, I'm ready for a break. Break is over. All right, I got that flange all cleaned up. This is way easier to get trued up anyway without the sprocket on it. And as long as that flange is true, the sprocket has to be true, right? Anyway, there's my guide wire. Guys, it don't get much better than that. I would say that's perfect. Very, very happy with that. I'm going to start getting some stitch welds on here. Might try our sprocket one more time. Maybe we won't. I don't know. And then we'll get this welded solid. Started just putting stitches on there and checking it with the guide wire, spinning it. I was doing that while it was on the axle. I just pulled my shims out as I'd go. So that should be perfectly true. Well, I know it is. So what I really want to do now is get this welded solid on the back side. I think that's where I get most of my strength from. And yeah. got that all welded in there. It's not a perfect weld, but I had quite a gap to fill there. It's burned in good and deep, so I'm thinking that'll be just fine. In a way, it would have been nice if that flange had fit a little tighter. It had made it easier to weld, but you know, with that gap, it did make it easy for me to get everything trued up. So I don't know what to say. As long as everything holds together, that was a pretty easy thing to do as far as what it could have been. Because, you know, before I wasn't going to have this. I was just going to have a ring that I was going to cut out of a piece of metal. Been quite a bit of work, you know. And I think it would have been harder to do than this. And probably not as strong. I don't know if I would put any more tacks on the front. Probably not necessary. I got it welded solid on the back. That surely can't go anywhere, right? Surely not. I'm going to call that good. All right, I got that on there. Everything's running real true. Very happy with it. I think I need a half link for the chain. It seems like if I take it apart at the next actual link, it might be a little tight, but I've still got this tensioner that seems to still be in the right location. I could probably replace this with a skateboard wheel or a block of wood or something and put a little tension on it right there with a spring, you know, back here. So I think that's looking pretty good. Very happy with it. As long as nothing breaks, it's gonna work. We just gotta hope nothing breaks. A lot of stuff on here that could break. Well, we stopped just short of getting the chain on, but very happy with everything. Turns out, if you want to put a chain on your Model T pickup truck, all you need is a friend that has the chain and some sprockets and an uncle that can find you grain elevator parts. Should be all you need. Anyway, we're going to give it a try. Cross our fingers, hope for the best. So I think next video, we get the chain on it. Probably start looking at the front wheel bearings. See if we can get it rolling a little better, and then we're just about ready to roll out of here. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share, all those things. And we'll catch you on the next one. Later. Jeremy.